we're live. Recording. We're live.
Nice.
Yay. Right.
And we are live. Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Newgent, and you're watching Mark Newgent Live. Today I have a special guest, Yorba City Councilwoman and Deputy Attorney General, Congressional Candidate Peggy Huang, and special guest, political strategist, donor, Dmitriy
Businessman, entrepreneur. That's what I would say. Philanthropist.
Chebotarev, Mr. Chebotarev, right?
Chebotarev.
And we're here to interview Peggy Huang, who's running for Congress in the 45th District. I was going to read her bio, but I'll just go ahead and say, can you tell us a little bit about yourself while people log in and ask us questions live, which should take about 15 minutes.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Peggy Huang, and I'm currently a Yorba City Council member. I'm also a director on Transportation Corridor Agency, as well as a regional council member for Southern California Association of Government. I chair the Community Education Economic Development Committee for the SCAG, as well as the Regional Housing Needs Assessment Committee for SCAG, and that RENAC subcommittee will come into play in the next few weeks as we are getting ready to deal with affordable housing issue here in Southern California. But a little bit about myself. I'm a Deputy Attorney General for the state of California. I specialize in criminal law. I handle all the appeals on behalf of the state of California. That means that once a defendant is convicted, I handle all the appeals before the Court of Appeals, the California Supreme Court, as well as the federal courts. I really started this whole entire journey in my life in America when I was 7 years old. My family came to America. We came here the right way. We came here legally. My family waited 12 years to come to America. They applied to come to America before I was born. They were denied and reapplied again. And so our journey was quite long. I grew up in San Jose until I was 16, came down to Irvine, and I'm a proud Trojan University High School graduate of 1989 and went on to Cal Berkeley, where really a series of events at Berkeley changed my life and direction. I got involved with my church as well as my service fraternity. And I volunteered at a domestic violence shelter where I met a lady who was there with her children. She couldn't leave her husband for many years because her visa status was tied to her husband's work status. So by leaving her husband, we're equal to being an undocumented immigrant, and it was important for her to stay with her husband to have that legal status, but finally she left that situation. And it was through her that she put in the passion in me to want to work with victims of violence, Asian American women and victims of child abuse, because I don't want to see any woman who is stuck in a relationship where she was being abused all because she couldn't leave because of her immigration status. Perpetuated me into a completely new field. I decided that I found my life's work helping women and children, but I found out also I had a little bit of a weakness. I couldn't speak Mandarin, and that's a problem when you want to work with immigrants. You got to speak their language, and I also knew that I would not be a good lawyer and a good advocate on their behalf if I didn't know how direct services work. Where does it work? How do money works? How hard is it to access service? Things like that. So I decided to go back to Taiwan for a year to learn Mandarin. And while I was there, I got a chance to work in the world of sex trafficking.
Okay.
I volunteered at a shelter. We rescued girls who were sold into prostitution. So these girls, at the age of 5 or 6, they were sold into prostitution by their own family for money. A lot of them came from poor families, and it was just really hard on the family to have another mouth to feed. So they sold their daughters into prostitution, and I worked with a Catholic church. We rescued these kids from pimps and from brothels, and brought them in, rehabilitate them. The number one thing we were doing was try to see if we can reunify with their families. Well, we discovered that's pretty hard because these kids, they have a lot of hatred toward their parents. I mean, to know that your parents didn't want you, sold you off, lived this horrible lifestyle. So what we do is, if we cannot reunify with their biological parents, we reunify with maybe a grandparent, a sister, extended family members.
Was this like a charity that was funding all this? How'd the funding for all this go?
So it was called Good Shepherds. Now, back in 1993 in Taiwan, they did not have nonprofits. So everything was directly, the shelter we were at was donated by a very generous family. So no tax credit here, just purely because he believed in the cause. But I worked with it. The name of the organization was called Good Shepherds. And the main supporter, financial backer, was the Catholic diocese from the Philippines, from Manila.
Yeah.
So they were the main. The nuns were from the Philippines. They were Filipino Chinese, and as well as a lot of the social workers. They all came from the Philippines. They were there, and then we started training people. Also started getting more physicians involved. These kids have a lot of health issues on top of the psychological issues. So it was a community, a lot of people who wanted to help. They were just donating their services.
We have a question from the
Sure.
audience, and if you're watching us live, this is a town hall live stream. So unlike other people, we actually take questions live and unfiltered from the audience. We don't script it. So we have a question from Nick Wilson. The question is, I'll read it. What is your explanation for the failure of the OCGOP? What did the party do wrong? And what is the party leadership doing differently now to stop the bleeding?
Great question. Thank you, Nick, for watching this live stream and participating. I think our greatest failure was we got complacent. We got lazy. We got used to Orange County being a Republican country. We never thought in our lifetime ever of anyone in Orange County would ever vote for a Democrat and thus going blue. So we got lazy. We didn't work hard. We didn't go out there to do what we need to do, which is to get everyone's vote. And to do differently, we do have a political plan now for direct voters contact. And for myself as a candidate, I'm knocking on doors. I've been knocking on doors for this past month. I will tell you, I stopped counting the number of homes where people telling me I never had a Republican knock on my door, and I've been here for over 30 years. Or actually, I met someone who's been in her home for 40 years. And so I am changing as a member of leadership in the party, as well as being a candidate. I'm changing that dialogue. My volunteers and we are out there, we're walking, we're knocking on every door. And I will tell you, I'm not just knocking on Republican doors. I'm knocking on declined estate. I'm knocking on Democrats, because we have a great message and we need to go out there and tell people our message. It cannot be done through mailers. It cannot be done through, TV ad. It has to be done through one-on-one contact. I believe in our political plan. We need to execute it. We need volunteers to go out there and do the work.
Okay. Okay. Before we get too much into this, do you have a website people can visit to learn about your campaign?
Yes, please visit my website at peggyforcongress.com. There's a great biographical video on there that talks a lot about me, as well what I've done in the world of victim advocacy and immigration reform. I worked on Welfare Reform Act of 1996.
We're going through your website now. Can you tell us about it? We're on the homepage.
Oh, there.
So here we are on the homepage right here.
Yes, and with my two beautiful girls, Jacqueline and Josie. They're my best volunteers. They've been walking precincts for Republicans since they were 3 and 5. And the first campaign they worked on was Ed Royce's campaign. They walked throughout Yorba carrying this poster, "Vote for Ed Royce." Okay. And we canvassed on behalf of them. So I'm very proud of them. And Josie is the youngest Trump volunteer. So I have to brag a little bit about that, being a young volunteer.
So what's the web address?
PeggyForCongress.com.
Is it FOR or the number 4?
FOR. PEGGY. FORCONGRESS.com.
You can purchase the number 4 Congress, and then you can have it go direct to this one. Pretty easy.
Pretty good. Let's talk about that later, huh? Then we can redirect back.
So where do people
Yes.
volunteer if they want to volunteer?
And there is please click on the volunteer link there and sign up to be our volunteer, as well as sign up for, to receive news.
Okay. They
There
can
we
donate
are.
as well too.
And please donate, the website. I mean, it costs like $10 at least for a sign.
Okay.
So please donate. Need all your help.
Up here in the red, you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
Yep. And then it goes to this one. You guys can donate $10 up to max is $2,800.
It's
Max
such an
is
easy,
28.
It's such an easy tool to use nowadays with the donation. You
Okay.
just click it.
Then
And you can sign up for monthly as well.
okay. All right, let's go back to us. All right. So no more questions yet. We'll go on to the other questions.
Sure.
Did you finish up on your bio, the things you want to talk about there?
No, I want to talk about, the fact that I've been a prosecutor now for the state of California. I've been a lawyer for over 20 years. I've handled several high-profile cases, actually. I worked on the Unabomber case.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, I did.
I have a whole bunch of questions about this, though, but keep going.
Oh yeah, so I was working at the U.S. Attorney's Office back in 1996. My supervisor came up to me and said, "Hey, I heard you're really good at legal research. Congress just changed the law on death penalty. It was called Anti-Terrorism and Death Penalty Act of 1996. We've got this big case coming, and it will be the first time we're going to use this brand new death penalty case law, and we don't know anything about this." So I was responsible for doing all the legal research and on the Death Penalty Act and trying to figure out how we can ensure that in the event Unabomber is found guilty, we can't impose the death penalty under the Constitution. Unfortunately, after a whole entire year of work, he decided to plead guilty, so I never got a chance to see my work at the penalty phase. But it was really exciting. I learned a lot from great prosecutors who were putting the case together, and they taught me quite a bit. I also worked on a case that was really interesting, and it was on spy equipment.
Really?
It was the largest bust in the nation at that time of this one company that was producing illegal spy equipment. So they were back in those days, I mean, they somehow put little cameras inside a pen. I mean, very James Bond, type of technology.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty neat, except it was all illegal. And so I got a chance to work on that, as well as I worked on the indictment for civil rights violation in Corcoran State Prison.
Really?
Didn't work on that.
Wow.
Recently, I finished up work on a case that was a death penalty case. It's going to change constitutional law. The decision is down whether or not somebody can represent themselves on a death penalty case. So there's actually a statute out there that said you cannot represent yourself if you are facing death penalty.
Why can't you represent yourself if you're facing death penalty?
Because there was this idea that we don't want state-assisted suicide. So don't want you to commit, say, oh, I'm going to plead guilty. I represent myself. I plead guilty. And this way, the state literally help you commit suicide. We want to be sure about our we want to be sure about our guilty pleas, right? Yeah. So my case was really interesting because he actually had a court-appointed advisory attorney who really helped him along the way, and so in that case, it was upheld. And I had a very interesting case also. It's where it was. This is where I would say if you are sleeping at home alone, especially if you're a woman, turn on your burglar alarm, okay? I had a case where a guy broke into her house because, I should start back up. She had a birthday party. She got really drunk. She and her boyfriend, fiance, got really, really drunk. They went to bed. A burglar broke into the house and not only stole things, but also had sex with her, except she thought she was having sex with her boyfriend.
Oh,
She
wow.
was so drunk. And when she woke up, she realized what happened to her. They collected DNA. It was one of the first cold cases that was, where we found the suspect through the DNA testing and DNA bank. So 3 years later, they found the suspect, and he was charged with rape under false pretenses.
Wow.
Right, and it was the first time they were using this statute since 1956. So I had to kind of reconstitute everything and try to argue why this guy is guilty, because false pretenses and all origin of false pretenses was when men lied to a woman to have sex with her. So you lie to the woman, get married with him, and then have with her, and then have sex with her, and then try to divorce her. All right. So this is an old archaic law from the late 1800s, 1900s, and it was last used in 1956.
Wow.
Yeah, makes great story.
So we've got this question.
Okay.
But as you're reading through that one right there, but if we just pop the question up, we'll get to it in a second.
Okay.
So people are going to ask you. This is probably a softball question.
Okay.
Why do you want to be in Congress? Why?
Oh, I look at what's going on right now. No one is talking about solutions, right? I mean, right now Congress is talking about impeachment, and I said impeachment by hearsay is not we'll talk about that later. But we need to start talking about kitchen table issues. I meet families who are in debt over student loans. I met a family yesterday. I was walking out, and they told me they're actually $200,000 in debt because they didn't want their children to have the student loan, so they put it on themselves. And now they're looking at, wow, I'm about to retire, and I have, over $200,000 loans. And so we need to talk about that. Healthcare. I mean, when was the last time you heard anybody talking about reforming healthcare? Because we are looking at double-digit increases in cost. Affordable Care Act was not affordable, right? It actually made insurance unaffordable rather than affordable. Has been a problem. And we have mental health issues we have to deal with. There's a whole host of issues. Here in our district, two things that are very important to this district. Transportation. Okay. Right, we have got the deal with the South County mobility, North County mobility, as well as education. And nobody's talking about that. That's why I'm running, because we need to solve those kitchen table issues.
One of the things that really kind of you talk about the price of healthcare, insurance costs are just through the roof. I'm paying through the roof for insurance from my family, so. What are your ideas to reduce the cost of that, but keep good health care?
Well, one of the first thing is price transparency. And, I am a breast cancer survivor. And so I went through a lot in terms of trying to understand my healthcare costs. And I will not tell you how much it is, other than it was very, very a lot. I paid a lot in health insurance, and on top of that, getting a huge bill. But one thing I learned, it was amazing. I was charged $50 for 2 Tylenols. How is that even possible in a hospital? You should not have to pay $50 for 2 Tylenols. I was also charged with, I went to an in-network MRI place, and they charged me $1,100. Then later on, I found out an independent guy charges less than $1,000. Those are so. If you have price transparency, look. If I knew I had to pay $50 for 2 Tylenols, I would have sent my husband across the street to CVS and bring back a bottle.
Yeah,
right.
I've had a similar situation where my daughter, we took her to the ER because she fell out of the car. She was like 2 years old, and I administered the Tylenol myself because that was their solution, and it was $1,000. I mean, luckily I have insurance, so that's not what I paid. But I'm like, wait a minute, I'm giving the Tylenol, and you're charging $1,000.
Oh wow!
Do I get any of that?
Exactly, and we need to give people the opportunity to use their health savings account in a flexible way. So we know that for large companies, employers that provide health insurance, there's all these pre-tax benefits. But if you're a small business owner, you don't have that. But if you can use the health savings account, use that as a pre-tax mechanism, then you have a little bit more flexibility to use that money in a pre-tax manner to buy your health insurance. The other thing is that under Obamacare, they limit how much you can, use the health savings account if it's employer sponsored. And, life happens, emergencies happen. Going back to me having breast cancer, it happened in the middle of a year. So I couldn't even put money away in a health savings account. Why can't I have a health savings account that I can put money in throughout the years instead of, at the beginning of the year, right? You have to set that up. So we need that flexibility.
Okay, so I hate to interrupt. We have another question from the audience. Sean Gordon asks, Peggy, what is the solution in the OC to get control back if you want to understand health insurance? Let me know. I wrote medical billing software for many years.
Great, Sean. And please send me an email on my website. I love to talk about medical billing. That is one complex world. So your insight will be very, very helpful. I know nothing about billing.
Let's look on your website. So it's right here under the contact button.
Yes.
Click that right there. And then you can send her an email right here.
Correct.
Okay. There you go. I'll leave that up for a second while you keep talking about that if you'd like.
Yes. And the solution OC to get control back. Like I mentioned, the party has a political plan of direct contact, but we need to start talking about the issues, the solutions. And most importantly, I think the mistake last time was people ran away from our president. They didn't want to talk about our president. Our president he's doing great things. Look at the economy. Now, we're going to have disagreement here and there. I'll be the first one to say that, because not all of us think alike. But as long as we have respectful dialogue, that's great. But we should never run away from our president. He is the commander-in-chief. He's the leader of this party. We can respectfully disagree, but we don't run away from him. And I support my president.
Okay. I got a bunch more questions too. If we miss your question, we'll try to circle back to it as well. I'm trying to have more questions than we have time for. So, okay, here's a personal question. Our current rep, from what I hear and what we've seen, seems to complain a lot about having to go to D.C. From what we understand for mostly personal reasons. Do you have any personal issues that will prevent you from serving in Congress or staying in D.C. for extended periods of time?
No, I don't. It's part of the job description. To be in D.C. and do the people's work. I have no problem flying back and forth to do whatever it takes to make sure that the people in this district's voice is heard in Congress, and as well as coming back to the district to make sure that I am in contact with you, know what your needs are, what do you want me to do on your behalf.
Awesome. Okay, I got a bunch more questions.
Okay.
Another one actually was how can someone volunteer in that campaign? And again, go to the website.
Go to the website, hit volunteer.
Okay, hit the volunteer button right there. So if you guys want to volunteer in the campaign, it's right there.
I have a question. So, kind of talking about staying with the president, and maybe talking about the whole thing going on with China. I mean, you said earlier that you have experience here. Am I loud enough? You have experience with China, with going out there, the culture. What do you feel about this, the trade war, what's happening here, the economy?
Well, this is where the president and I disagree. I don't support tariffs. Tariffs ends up hurting our people, the consumer, our companies that do business. We're looking at, California, to do business in California is so expensive. Where material cost, taxes and regulations. Now, when material costs going up, with all these imported items, it's really hurting our economy. In China, it's actually hurting them. No doubt, it's hurting them, but it's not doing much. We're still in this horrible stalemate, and we can solve a lot of issues without imposing tariffs. If we're going to talk about intellectual property, one of the things we need to address on intellectual property is has actually come down to immigration reform, because everyone's looking at intellectual property as in patent, right, and copyright. Yeah. But do you know that we made a mistake is that we are training a lot of Chinese students who came here to get their PhD in engineering, physics, chemistry. They actually wanted to stay, but they couldn't get a visa. So guess what? We just put technology in their heads, and they went back to China, and 10 years later, they're our biggest competitor.
Oh, we see it right here in UC Irvine.
Yeah.
Right?
And, I have spoken to so many Chinese students. They're number one. Do you want to go back? No. I love it here, the freedom of expression, the freedom of vote and everything. And then I asked them, well, I heard there's incentives for you to return to China. You can go back, you can get a house, you're going to get paid 3 times the amount of everybody's making. All right, no amount of money is worth it when I can have this freedom.
Yep.
So the greatest technology transfer wasn't through the companies, it's through this education process. So we need to take care of it.
So we have another
Okay, we have
question
a
from
question.
Sean
Okay.
Gordon. I'll go ahead and read it here. It's kind of funny. One, it says, OCGOP is a circular firing squad that just keeps taking each other out, which we've actually talked about this earlier, how to keep people unified.
Yes.
California has passed rather creative voting laws, and the GOP just needs to take advantage of some of those laws. Can you help get OCGOP off their butts? The leadership has been an epic failure. And while you're thinking about that for a second, I just want to comment, thank you for taking questions live, because some people will not. So
Oh, well, my pleasure.
I just want to also point that out. As we're taking questions live from the audience, unfiltered, you guys see them across your screen. We're taking them in real time. We're not making you write them on a piece of paper and then put them in this bin and pretend to pull it out. Everyone here can watch the questions come across the screen. So that's the question.
Yeah.
So you can see it on my screen there.
I will say, it does feel like it's a circular firing squad. If you've ever been to our central committee meetings, yes, it feels that way. I am part of leadership, so if you want to blame me, you can also blame me for that. I will take full responsibility for the stuff that I didn't do. I have been working very hard to recruit volunteers. I have gone out there to not only volunteers, raising the money to help the party. But one thing I cannot get people to do is they have to do their part. I get a lot of complaints all the time. People just don't want to sign up.
Speaking about doing that part, okay. So I have a question for you, and
Yeah.
I ask all the candidates. So let's assume you win. Would you accept the support of your previous rivals from the primary to help you to the general?
Of course, we're a big family, and I think that's important for us to understand. Okay,
And if
don't
it goes,
attack each other.
That's assuming that you're going to win. Now, if it goes the other direction, well, are you going to help the others?
Yes,
general. Okay, cool.
absolutely.
That's awesome.
I'm about winning back Orange County. We got to think about that. We're here to win Orange County back for the party, and turn it back red.
That's awesome. I like the attitude that we're all positive and we're all a team together and we're unified. After the March 3rd, then we all are one team, one fight.
Yeah.
And then we have one more comment. That's actually a good
Okay.
one from Nick Wilson. Says, to Peggy, thank you for doing this. It takes guts, and I would love to see more candidates do this, but I won't be holding my breath.
Nick, this is what I would say to you, Nick. Keep going. Keep asking us questions, and to vote for candidates that are going to answer your questions.
And
I'm about substance.
Hate to interrupt you, but to put on the record, Katie Porter was invited. The request was put to her office to be on live stream. I've even offered to let them use equipment, but nothing. They declined. So.
Mark, you're so generous to always offer your time and your equipment. So I want to thank you so much for doing that.
Cool. I kind of want to ask something kind of along the same lines as, the primary and the other Republicans. But, there's so much division between Republicans and Democrats in Congress. I know, the regular folks like me want to see more, work done together between Republicans and Democrats, especially moderates. How do you feel we can get to that point of working together again, Republicans and Democrats, to get things done?
Well, I think it's very important to start out with supporting candidates with reasonable solutions, right? And I have a record of working across the aisle. I manage a 47-member policy committee for SCAG, and it's primarily Democrats.
Wait, what's SCAG?
SCAG, Southern California Association of Government, and I manage a 47-member committee made up of people from both parties. We have very civil discussions on policy issues, driving toward a consensus. It's all about driving toward a consensus, building a consensus. And I think it is, and hi, Tara. My mayor.
I usually don't do that. You guys didn't know, it always flashes across my screen who's watching.
Nah.
I didn't know that.
There has
I
been
didn't know
some
that.
big names that have been watching us, trust me.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Well, I want to say hi to Tara. But I think it's
I have
important
a
that
quick
we.
joke on that, actually.
Yeah.
You know Carrie O'Malley, right? Running for
Yes.
city council.
Hi, Carrie.
One time I said, "Oh, hi, Carrie," and she freaked out and like threw her phone because she thought I could actually see her. She told me afterwards. I was like, "No, I cannot actually see you."
It's not, maybe Facebook can see you.
No, we can't. I mean,
We can't
I only
see
see
you.
the questions and it says who's watching.
No, I'm saying Mark Zuckerberg can probably see.
Yeah, through the lens.
Okay. Well, hi, Mark Zuckerberg.
Hey, Mark.
As you finish up that thought, we have some more questions.
Finish my thought. No, but I think, you know what? For too long, we've been saying compromise is a dirty word. It's not compromising your principle. We all have really good principle. Let's draw the line of, okay, this is crossing my principle. But find the space. Always start out with working on the space. Where can we see?
Totally.
And you know, remember the famous line from Reagan, it's like getting 80%, you know?
Yeah,
So-
if you agree
So why
someone
not?
80%, you're allies.
Yeah.
So, just hold this on my hand because I forgot the stand.
Okay.
So hi, Mary as well. She's watching.
I'm Mary.
So another I'm not sure it's a comment or a question. Probably just a comment from Kenny White. Says it's not the Republicans. Democrats simply don't want a binary government. This is more of a comment. Tom Rapp has a comment. I will not vote for any anti-abortion or anti-assisted candidates. I'm not sure what he said. Anti-assisted, maybe anti-suicide assisted. I'm not sure what his comment is. So Rap Tom, if you want to. They're talking. I'm sorry. They're talking amongst themselves in the comments.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh.
All right.
There's a whole nother dialogue.
There's a
going
whole
on.
lot of dialogues. Okay.
And then
Got it.
Ben
All
Yu
right.
has a really long question.
Okay.
Wow, that's a long one.
Dissertation.
Yeah. You can
Well,
see that.
Ben
on your screen.
Yu is a veteran, so he
Yeah.
cares a lot about veterans issues.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you want me to. We can talk while you read it, or you want me to read that paragraph he typed out.
Wow. Hey, Ben, do you think you can just like help me out by writing one question?
Okay. How about this?
One at
Do
a
you
time.
support veterans' needs? How about that?
Oh, absolutely.
There we go.
Absolutely. And my husband and I have been supporting a homeless, a veterans group that helps homeless vets.
Jeffrey
They used to be
Barkey.
called Veterans First. I can't-
Jeffrey Barkey, Mary Barkey's husband, just said hi.
Hi, Jeff.
Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Wave.
Okay. So I have a follow-on question.
Okay.
Day one, and not 9 months later, do you plan to hire a veteran in your office?
Absolutely.
That's typical best practice, right?
You cannot help people in the community by sticking someone who's never worked in the trenches, right? You get for everything you have. If you really are dedicated to that issue, then you got to hire somebody who knows the issue. I mean,
Okay,
that's
so
how
is-
I did my work as
is
a
it-
child advocate.
Is it fair to say that a 21-year-old staffer could probably not connect with a career soldier or even a young veteran suffering from PTSD or other veterans issues? Do you agree or disagree? It's fair to say.
Unless the 21-year-old had experience. I mean, if it's a 21-year-old who had experience in, military, yes. But, if somebody without the experience, they shouldn't be working on that issue. No.
Yeah, I
It's
tried to
too
explain stuff
complex.
like what's the RE code on a DD-214? That's like Soldier 101, right? I know exactly what that is. And
Right.
it would take the staffer like a few hours to figure that out. That takes about a half a second for every single veteran.
Right.
DD-214 is your discharge paperwork. RE code is how you got discharged. Is it good or bad? Your re-entry code. It's on the bottom page to the right, down towards the bottom. Anyway, see, that was one of my questions as well, and it dovetails into what Ben Yu was saying about veterans issues. And our current representative has been very weak on supporting veterans, and after much pressure, hired a veteran. Instead of actually using her budget, she went and did something else. It took us a long time to get a veteran on staff, and it just finally happened.
Wow.
Versus using the budget to get one day one.
Yeah.
So
I plan to staff my office with people who actually know the district issues.
yeah.
That's very, very important. Direct services.
Yeah, another question is, how long would it take to hire staff at your office when elected?
Great question. I'm hoping that it won't take me that long. Like I like to do it the first month. Everything we do, if we really want to represent people, first place to, I believe, in terms of staffing is the district office, right? Yeah. You got to have a place for the people to go to, because this past year, I can say nobody's been representing
So it
those
wouldn't take you
districts.
3 to 4 months to hire somebody?
No, it shouldn't take that long.
Okay, because
That's
again,
horrible. That's horrible
I'm
services
just
to
gonna
our people.
say the facts. It
Okay.
was in June when Katie Porter, she got elected. She got sworn in December, January.
January.
Then in June, after so much pressure, promised to hire a veteran on staff in June. They just hired one last week. What is October?
Wow.
So
10 months later.
Yeah, if you had a chief of staff hypothetically, and they took 3 months to hire somebody, would you want to fire them or keep them on?
Oh no.
Hire the chief of staff. Didn't take 3 months to hire somebody.
Between November when you win and January when you're sworn in, that's when you're supposed to be working on that district staff, right?
Yeah, there's like, I don't know, 140,000 veterans in OC in LA, so it couldn't be that hard to find someone. Yeah.
No,
of course.
No, and we have very talented people, smart people who are veterans.
So we have a question from the audience.
Okay.
Kenny White says, I'm a veteran. My 2 sons are all veterans and lost a son to PTSD. Would she be willing to pledge to put veterans first?
I think I just answered that question, but yes, absolutely. Veterans,
It's emotional.
you know, they've gave so much. And I'm going to tell you something very personal. So why military is very, very important to me. So, as you know, I'm from Taiwan, and Taiwan's this little island, and everybody would like to attack us. Where Taiwan is very dependent on the 7th Fleet. Without the 7th Fleet, Taiwan would be obliterated. So to me, I have very, very high regard for the men and women who are out there, especially those out in the sea. They're on tour for, out in this vast ocean for 4 to 6 months or longer. And when they get the order, they come speeding across to help a little country they may not have ties with. The least I can do is take care of them when they come home.
Kenny White has a follow-up question. You verbally pledged in writing, all candidates talk a good game. I can say, I know Peggy well enough to say she'll probably put that on her website if that would make you feel better.
And let me tell you this, Nick. Kenny, I'm sorry. Kenny, my campaign manager works with veterans.
Okay.
And
Kenny,
she's very well known. Deanne Tate is very well known working with homeless veterans.
I will say this about you, another candidate. I spent 20 years in the United States Army. I'm not sure if you know my bio, but if Peggy or Greg or any of the candidates say that they put veterans first, I believe them. Just so you know that. So in writing or not, but I suspect she'll probably put it on her website to do that. So hope that answers your question. And then Saga says, hi, everybody.
Hi, Saga.
Some other friends are on. Andrew Bandek. Do you know Andrew? I'm sure you've met him.
I met him.
Yeah.
Hi,
so
Andrew.
Andrew says hi. So I got a bunch more questions too, if you guys want to go through that.
Okay, go for it.
Since the last time we talked, it's been a while. What's new on the campaign trail?
Well, I started full force in October to knock on doors. That's what's really going on here, to get out there and really talk to people. I'm learning a lot of issues. And I found that the issues that I care about are the things that are really hitting the people here in the district. So that's what's new on the campaign trail on that end. Of course, please donate. Contributions is always badly needed and much needed to get our message out. It is a big district. I've also been very active on social media, print press, as well as on, YouTube and TV stations, reaching out to everybody and using every single medium possible. Recently, there was a podcast that was done talking about my experience with martial law and what it's like to live in a country where martial law was imposed, where you are not given any freedom. And that is why I'm fighting so hard. I just cannot imagine this country.
What's interesting is some of the biggest conservatives are from China. They absolutely hate communism.
Yeah.
Yeah, some are watching now.
Yeah,
well,
because we know what it's like. And look at Dmitriy. He's from
my family's from communism. We got out of there as soon as communism fell. We were like, I'm out.
And then you got the other side, like on the Don Wagner campaign. There was the one Asian on Loretta's campaign is like, Asians don't support Don Wagner. And we heard this at the campaign headquarters. And there's like a 90% Asians at the campaign headquarters.
Oh, my gosh.
It's like, that's interesting.
Which side of the aisle is she? Which side of the bed does she fall out of?
But I just think that's.
I have a question over here from from Mr. Mark Doddridge. He's
Hey,
asking.
Mark.
He's asking, will you let our band play at your victory party?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Hey, a huge shout out, everybody. You gotta hear of this band. I love this band. So yes, Mark, you can play anytime, even in my backyard if you like.
Okay. Speaking of that, do you have any events coming up for the general public?
Oh yeah.
We just had 2 events. We're getting one. I actually will have one in DC, but we're in the process of getting another one. Hopefully it will come together at the end of December, but not December. I'm thinking October, but definitely we have one coming. 3 events that are tentatively scheduled for November. So keep an eye out on our website and social media. It's been posted.
Also, something I wanted to let you know too,
Yes.
something you could address technical glitch. I'm signed up for your emails, but they were going to my junk folder. So if you guys are signed up too for her emails, check that.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Because I specifically went to sign up, and then I was like, why am I not getting anything? And then I checked, and that's where they were.
Sorry.
So I'm not sure if that's something, an adjustment on my side or yours, but I'm using Gmail. Just FYI.
You know, Gmail, well, I don't know enough about technology, but I think it's more of when you have multiple recipients and then they start having problems that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got some other
You
questions.
call me next time or Facebook me.
Okay. Yeah, and Peggy is tagged on this, so she's very active on social media as well.
Super active.
Okay, so here's one from Melissa Steele. She asked a question. Again, we are taking questions unfiltered from the audience, no script here. Melissa Steele says, what is the single most troubling issue you currently see among your constituents today?
Well, I'll just take what happened to me yesterday. I knocked on 3 homes. I knocked on more than 3 homes, but for some reason, these 3 homes in a row, they want to talk about student loans with me. And I mentioned earlier, I bumped into a couple. They are now over $200,000 in debt because they wanted to help their children. Then I went next door, and it was a young family with a baby. They were holding the baby when I was talking to them, and combined, they had over $300,000 in student loans.
Financial distress, you think, is...
I
Because it goes to the gas tax too, right?
gas tax on top of that. And so we started talking about student loans. We were talking about their mortgage. They were worried about paying for their children's education. Oh, car payment.
It's hard to say one single issue because it all ties in together.
They
because
do.
when you take people's money, you take their freedom from them.
And then they become homeless.
Yeah, like I volunteer a lot driving around town. Somebody was talking about, they had posted a picture of Katie Porter saying put OC families first, right? And they picture right next to the gas pump of the new taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to say, thank you, Melissa, to your daughter. Her daughter has been walking the precincts with me for the past 2
Melissa
weekends.
still.
Yes.
Okay.
I just noticed that it's the Melissa I know. And her daughter has been a great volunteer.
Okay. So I have some other kind of general conversation starter here. What type of questions have you been getting from constituents on the campaign trail so far? Mm-hmm. What are some of the general questions you've been receiving?
Well, another huge issue is really dealing with homelessness. Right. And that's really big here. I mean, one, it's the fact that, number one, we have liberal justices, the Ninth Circuit saying that, you can't use anti-encampment laws to, keep the homeless off the streets. So that's a huge issue. One thing that I care a lot about are foster children. Over a third of the foster kids, when they leave the foster care system, will automatically be homeless. We can do a lot there. Transitional living and transitional housing programs are currently in place. We, as a society, we do have a responsibility to them because we took them away from their parents. We said, your parents are no good, so the government took you away to keep you safe. But we can't just dump them on the streets. At the age of 18 to 21 is usually when they age out. We dump them on the street, literally, and without any skills. Transitional Living Program is a program that teach kids how to balance their checkbook, budget, get a job, interview
I wish
for a
they would
job.
have taught me that when I was in school.
Yeah, and that's these programs are there, and we need them already. And just think for foster kids who a lot of time they're moving 4 to 6 foster homes in their teenage years. Wow. There's no one person that's really helping them. Yeah. And there have been very successful programs where CEOs or managers, people from the business community that would come and teach these kids. I want to encourage that public-private relationship where CEOs can come, or human resources personnel officers who come in, teach these kids how to interview, how to put their resume together, because no one's there to help them, and they're busy trying to just be sane in this crazy world. Just think that if you can help a third of the kids coming out of exiting foster care here in California, you're keeping about 30,000 kids off the streets.
Yeah.
And many years ago, a economist wrote a paper about, for every dollar we contribute to this program, we're actually saving between $10 to $12 in criminal justice costs.
Oh, yeah, because they all end up in jail.
Exactly. So what can we do? And these kids need a lot of help. Yeah. We just need it does take money, and I'm committed to making sure it's fully funded, and lower the age from 15 down to 12. Get them started. But I wanted to work with our private industry people who are experienced and, who are going to go out there. We have people already now working in prisons with, entrepreneurs going into prisons and helping them with skills and getting their resumes together so they can interview for jobs when they get out. Let's do the same for foster kids. They're our most vulnerable population.
Appreciate that. So we have a few more comments and questions. Okay. Kenny White, not really a question. He just had a comment that says student loans doesn't equate to American loans. And then I commented, please share the live stream, guys, so we can get more people watching.
Oh, yeah.
Jeffrey Barkey, he has a question. Hi, Peg. When the House is now Dem-controlled and highly partisan, how can a minority congresswoman influence the discussion and help California?
Great question, Jeff. I believe a person can make a difference. If we go in with this attitude that I'm in the minority and I can't do anything, then I might as well not run. I'm going in there. I'm taking my experience, and it all starts out with, look, I'm preparing. Here's my proposal. What's your counter proposal? Never walk away and say, I don't like it, and offer nothing. All right. And that's where I work. I always come up with a solution, a proposal. And I said, hey, look, this is my proposal. I am open to your ideas. If we care about America, if we care about the people in California, specifically with CD 45, let's explore all options. I always believe that two heads are better than one. If we take away the partisanship, we take away ideology, we just say, look, we're here for the American people, we're here for the district. Let's put our heads together and come up with a solution. We can do a lot of things. That's one thing about America, is it's a land a place that promotes innovation. It's a place that promotes free thinking, independent thinking. Let's not take that away and be under socialist, regime where it says group think only, and it's got to be, dictators thinking. So why aren't we doing that? I see Democrats now bullying us into groupthink and taking away our freedom to innovate and think and express ourselves. That's what this country is all about. And if you wanted to work on compromise, if you want to get to a solution, it is to remember this country is built on the freedom of thought and innovation.
That's one of the things that, I really like about you, Peggy, because not a lot of politicians talk about, hey, let's work together. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. There are things that both sides agree on. The people issues. Yeah, there's room for debate, but it doesn't have to get nasty. It doesn't have to be that way. And you've always been a huge proponent of, well, let's just get together and let's get things done that are going to help people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is it fair to say your answer to that question, generally speaking, is to focus on solutions over pointing fingers?
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I heard, because I picked out you were talking about finding solutions, even with the other side, even with the Democrats talking about solutions to problems.
Yeah.
You hear that a lot. They don't actually suggest what the solution is. When I was a commanding officer, people always bring issues, and I'd be like, okay, so what's your recommendation for a solution? And 90% of the time they go, and then if they give me a solution, I'd be like, I agree. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in business, it's the same thing. If you're trying to get business done, don't point out more problems. There's always problems. Give me a solution. And most of the time it's good enough to get across the line, and then you adjust.
Yeah.
Correct. I think in law school, we're taught to identify issues, right? And so I always say, well, lawyers are really good at identifying issues. And I think everybody's good at identifying issues. Finding a solution is the hard part. So let's talk about solutions. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like one time you told, I think you were talking to a group and you talked about the how you would tackle that student loan issue. And I don't see a lot of people talking about, well, how do we actually get rid of student loans unless you're going to forgive them all? But how feasible is that really?
Right. Well, thanks for asking about that. Because I've been solving problems from the economic point of view, right? I'm all about food security, housing security, and clothing security, and clothing is very important. And so I don't want families to have to choose between paying for medical bills and getting the medical health care and food. And then now we have all these taxes that, Democrats imposed on us. So solving problems from the economic point of view is where I always start out with. And that's where I came to the student loan idea. Not forgiveness. Let's work off that loan, okay? So a lot of companies have paid bonuses to their employees for performance, or they set aside money for education, right? They can get more schooling or certificates, but oftentimes that pot of money is unused, right? Yeah. Some people just said, I don't feel like going to more school and get more advanced certificates or advanced whatever. And the employer has that pot of money they already set aside. So my proposal is when an employee gets that bonus, or if the employer used that pot of money and gives to the employee to pay off their student loans, no taxation on the employee side, right? Right now, if you get a bonus from your employer, you get taxed. And it takes away a lot less payment available to student loans. Yeah. When you pay $500 bonus, you earned it, and you put all $500 toward your student loans, you shouldn't be taxed. Government should be helping you, not hindering you, right?
So it's the employer doesn't the employer gets a write-off.
Yes. So
and then the employee doesn't get taxed on that, and it goes towards paying off the student loan.
Correct.
It's a brilliant idea. It's so simple, but no, I've never heard anybody mention it.
No, because people are not thinking from the economic point of view. It's so simple, and it's simple, and it's an easy way out when you're using other people's money, right? Let's just take Dmitri's bank account to pay it off, right?
Let's use somebody else's,
right? But you're going to end up paying more in taxes and contributing to other people's student loans than if you were to just pay it off yourself, right?
Yeah.
But it's so important that So the component that you were talking about at the other part of my proposal was that the employer gets a deduction for, providing that bonus in order to help the student loans, as well as I don't want them to pay payroll taxes.
Oh my God, payroll taxes.
Payroll taxes. Why should an employer be paying payroll taxes when they're trying to help the employee do the right thing, which is earn the money to pay off their loans? And I actually asked a couple of people in the financial world, because they're so much smarter than me when it comes to these things, and they told me that you can set up, direct payment into the student loans. So it's not going to be we need to write a brand new Nobel Peace Prize research on it or something. Yeah.
We have a comment from Kenny White also.
Hi, Kenny.
Sean's watching. So Kenny's more of a comment. He says we should fix higher education on the front end by making it affordable rather than we all clean it up on the back end. So.
Well, yeah. And I think, Kenny, you're right. Higher education, it's very expensive. You've got professors earning quite a bit of money, and wow, and that pension they have. Oof. That's on the backs of these kids. So I don't disagree with you. We need to do something there. But, one of the things that I have not been pleased about the Obama administration, it's okay to criticize Obama, right?
Yes.
Mark? Okay.
I can tell
even though he's not in office, but this is the part where
I can share you when I was in the military, people were not a fan. Military people did not like him at all.
So my problem with the Obama administration is, for the entire time he was in office, he was projecting this message. You must get a college education because if you don't, you are worthless. So we have a whole lot of
I mean,
people
I'm
going.
worthless.
Yeah,
I
mean,
was a
it's like-
first lieutenant before I got my degree.
right. But we should allow people to not. You don't have to go to college, right?
I didn't get a degree.
You don't need a degree. And you are very successful without a degree. But do you remember how many times he kept saying, the kids got to go to college, and how much we celebrate the fact that somebody goes to college, or the first one in their family to go to college, and we said, wow, that's the type of person you want to be. No, you know what? We need to bring back apprenticeship. We need to bring back vocational training, right? We need to help kids.
This is gonna
find a job.
I should key the music, but he said, criticize Obama. He's the reason why I lost my son at his VA hospital was too slow.
Oh,
so
I'm
I would
so
say
sorry.
that
Oh, man.
it's gotten much
Oh, my
better now.
gosh.
I remember it used to be like an hour or two you had to be on hold to the VA.
ridiculous.
But now it's gotten a lot better in the last year or two. It's a few minutes, like maybe 5 minutes, hold tops, maybe 2 minutes sometimes if you call
Right.
the VA that I've had to call them. It's much better than it used to be.
That's good. Thank you, President Trump.
I remember hearing about that back during the Obama days.
Oh, it was horrible. Yeah.
About how veterans would get screwed.
Right.
Oh,
And you know what? People talk about socialized medicine. You know where socialized medicine is practiced, right?
Military.
The military.
I'm
And
partially.
it-
I'm disabled because of that. I know.
Yeah. So, this. I know Democrats don't want us to talk about that, because the minute we say, "Hey, look at the VA and how you guys run socialized medicine," people will run away from that.
We have a question
Hey.
from Ben Yu.
Hi,
Seems
Ben.
kind of vague. Can you be more specific? He's talked about recent legislative experiments. So if you could be more specific, Ben, and we'll answer your question.
Yeah.
Do you agree with this approach? Could you be more specific, Ben? That's kind of a so.
Okay.
Anyway, there's my next question. And it's interesting that he just popped in. So I saw that one candidate, Ray Genoway, who's a
Hi,
friend
Ray.
of a lot of people,
Hey, Ray.
he dropped out of the race. Has he been involved in your campaign? I saw he was recently elected to like a vice chair for a local Republican group. Do you know if
Yay!
he's
Congratulations, Ray. You know what? Even though he's not directly involved in my campaign, by being the vice chair of the Greater Irvine Republican, he is being involved for all the candidates. And that's what we need. We need people like Ray, who's going to say, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do things for the party. And I know that he's got a great team of volunteers. So I know he's going to do great things for our party. I can't wait to see what Ray's going to do to help revitalize this party. So no, he's not directly involved, but I know he is directly involved with our party, and that's important.
Okay.
Please help Ray.
Okay. I tagged another one. He's the president of the OCC College Republicans, and he'll be on in a second. I'm sure he's going to approach you and ask you to come speak to his group if you haven't already. They meet on Wednesdays.
Okay.
Is that Alex?
Alex, yeah.
Alex.
Uh-huh.
You met Alex, right?
I met Alex.
Yeah.
You met Alex.
I met Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been going around asking candidates to come speak to the group. I know Ray's been there, Greg's been there. So imagine they got about every Wednesday about 35 people show up. So very active, and they've been engaging with the UCI people.
Yeah.
Kind of bring.
I wanna actually. So I just saw somebody join. I'm sharing this. So everyone, if you wanna share to your group, so the people here, somebody just joined. I'm not gonna say his name, but he's a great guy. His whole family, they used to live in Lake Forest, and they had their business in Lake Forest, which is in the district. And then they all moved to Texas. And a lot of people are moving out of state here in California. Maybe can you talk about what we can do better here to keep businesses, to keep the good families here in California? Because otherwise everyone's going to leave to Texas. By the way, hi, Scott.
Well, number one is we need to get rid of the Democrats in Sacramento. I mean, we make it so expensive to do business in California. Look at what they're trying to do. They're trying to get do split roll. Oh, by the way, Yorba Linda, first city to to pass a resolution on Proposition 13. We support Proposition 13 as written, and we oppose split roll. That hurts businesses. We have unnecessary regulations. Recently I've been talking a lot to builders about the need to build affordable housing unit, and they looked at me and they said, "Well, the difficulty is it takes $200,000 to $300,000 just to build an apartment unit because of all the regulations we have to go through, right?" we can't keep people here if we have these regulations that absolutely do not make sense.
Yeah.
Now, I'm for safety, right? If it's earthquake, fire, prevent toxic runoff, things like that. I mean, we should care a lot about that.
Yeah.
But if it's unnecessary regulations, we need to get rid of it. Otherwise, our businesses will not survive. Business tax is too high.
Totally.
It's just so nonsense that less than 45% of people who live in California actually pay income taxes. And so what we do is we put it all on the back of our businesses.
Yeah.
And we put it on the back of especially small business owners, right? They're really the economic engine for this country, the state, and we make it impossible for them to run a business, especially with the split roll coming up.
Well, I have some family up in Northern California, and they're Democrats. They identify as Democrats, as liberal, and I'm socially liberal on certain things. But they're getting really frustrated with, they have their own businesses. Mm-hmm. My brother-in-law, he's a contractor, and they get frustrated with, like, why is the money just being wasted? It feels like a lot of the money that we pay in taxes is going to some BS bureaucracy. And look at the 405 here. I mean, how long have they been working on the 5 expansion? What's going on here? How long does it take to expand that?
It takes a lot, and all these environmental mitigation and environmental, so much is going on. And on top of that, what's so difficult with, when we're talking about a transportation issue, which is a big deal for me, because I really want to solve our mobility. You can't get to work. You can't move goods, really a good economy if you don't have good transportation system, right? Yeah. This idea that even before, one of the costs they can keep down has been you don't have to use union labor to haul away, the construction materials, right? People who actually work on projects have to be union workers, but not the now goodness. It's even down to third party, right? Have to be union wage, and that just drives up the cost.
So we have Kenny White.
Okay, Kenny.
I believe he lives. Not sure if where exactly he lives. I was looking at his profile real quick. But he's got a bunch of questions here.
Okay.
He said, "Will you support President Trump?" I think you taking a break.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Will you support President Trump? I think you
answered that.
You answered that. Asked and answered. What kind of GOP are you? Grand old party or Trump-style Republican? And then after the defection, we had. I'm just leery and asked him, "What do you mean?" And so we have people win as a GOP and become Rhino or even go to Democrat with our seat. Then there was some other things. What are her views? Will she support the changes made by Trump or return to the party back to the way pre-Trump? While you think your thoughts, I will say that during my interview in 2016, years ago, you interviewed me for an endorsement. So she's been around for quite a while. I don't think she's gonna. There's a big history there. You have a good reputation and you're well known. So. You want to answer those questions from Kenny White?
Well, I like I said before, when we first started, I will not back away from my president. I support my president on economic, actually most of his policies. We're going to have disagreement here and there, but I love the direction that we're going. Unemployment rate being low. One of the things that I've been hitting people on the campaign trail that Republicans don't talk about is the Trump record on EPA. On the environment, we have a lot of these Superfund sites, right? And President Trump, in the first 4 years, he has been eliminating those Superfund sites, right? I mean, he's cleaning them up, and some of these sites have been. I think there's one in Minnesota or Missouri, somewhere over there, where it's been on the Superfund site list for 30 years. And here comes President Trump cleaning it up in less than 7 years. I mean, they're on their way. Look what it's doing for the local economy over there, bringing up property taxes, revitalization. We should be talking about that. President Trump was a disruptor and everybody feel uncomfortable about it. Okay, well, let's get over that. Let's focus on the policy. He's doing the right thing. I'm supportive of it. And if I disagree with him, I'll say it like I always do. Mark, you know me well enough. I never keep my opinion to myself. But, I will disagree.
Okay, that was Kenny White. I just looked at his. I think he's local from Chicago, Illinois, and we have like 500 friends in common. So I suspect you're local, and I see some people on your page that I know. So I got plenty of questions. As mentioned before, if someone wants to volunteer on the campaign or donate, how do they do that? Of course, it's on her website here. You guys can look at it. And it's peggyforcongress.com. You can donate, volunteer, learn about the issues. So I do have questions about your issues. We'll go to that eventually. Mm-hmm. I wanted to usually, let the audience ask more questions than me. So we're back to us. I think we covered most of these. A lot of these you have already asked and answered. Here's one. It's kind of a broad brush because we know one local Democrat is actually known for taking care of Democrats. That's Lou Correa. But some Democrats have a very bad reputation with veterans. What's your opinion on this?
Can you elaborate a little bit? Other than the fact that they ignore our veterans?
Well, you have like the outliers like Lou Correa, which is known for taking care of veterans. You go to his office, there's all this stuff for veterans. Yeah. But that seems to be more the exception rather than the norm with Democrats for veterans. I don't understand. I don't understand why we as a society, as a country, should not be looking at what veterans have done for us, right? I will tell you, somebody said something really interesting to me one time because I was talking about veterans issues, and I was specifically I was talking about the VA experience. My husband is a physician, and he has taken care of a lot of veterans because they couldn't get the level of care needed over at the VA. So they would come and see him, and he would come home and tell me these horrible things that happened. So I was talking to I have a group of physicians I was talking to about the need for what we can do in the healthcare in terms of delivery of services to our veterans. And it was really interesting. Someone actually said to me, well, why they already came back from the war. We have all these services. Why does it seem like we have to do more? And I was really irritated by that because you cannot put a price on somebody's life, right? Mm-hmm. When somebody signs up to be a soldier and fighting for us, they're not only doing this for whatever, $15 an hour, whatever. They're actually paying for the price with their lives, right? So why, as a country, are we not doing things for them to thank them? It's really hard to adjust, right, Mark? To back into society, isn't it? It's really hard. Yeah, of course it is.
Right, to the civilian life.
Yeah, it's very structured. Everything makes sense in the military. There's rules for everything, and it's very hyper masculine in the military. Very alpha males lead. It's all the humanity stripped down to the basics, everything. And maybe, Democrats don't celebrate the masculinity at all, as we've seen, right? Is that a fair statement, right? Yeah. And maybe that's what it is.
Or they don't like the fact of individuality.
I don't know. Military people are generally family-oriented, protector types. They're military. I think Trump got 2/3 of the military vote. And I'd say that it's fair to say, in my personal opinion, my 20 years of service in the Army, not just speak for that, 90% are Republicans, conservative, about 90%.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what it is. I don't understand. Also, there's rules in California that you cannot put veteran on the ballot if you're a politician.
Why? No, I did not know that.
Yeah, because they really trying to split things up.
Yeah, I mean, I can put like Army captain on the ballot because I'm an Army captain or a retired captain, things like that. But I'm the exception, not the norm. But most veterans struggle with because people generally like veterans, I think.
And
the general public does.
Apparently, except for the Democrats. They don't want people to know you're a veteran. I mean, why not? You earned that.
Yeah, so it's interesting. That's more of a state issue. But
yeah.
Okay, here's some other nice questions. Get us talking. Can you tell us about the Yorba Linda City Council and how that experience will help you when elected to Congress? Also, what other elected positions have you held? I know that you were elected to Central Committee too, right?
Okay, so I'm going to work backwards. So yes, I was elected to Central Committee. Many moons ago, I believe 2012. It's been a long time. I'm currently the first vice chair for the Republican Party. Previously, I held the office of being the secretary.
But I thought all Republicans were white males.
Oh yeah,
and your leadership, you're leading the Republican Party.
I'm like to change that, and thank goodness we have more women. Yeah, I'm the only Asian on the dais now that I think about it too as well. But you know what? You know what's so great about our party? Let me just say this. Democrats spend a lot of time talking about diversity. All right, that's all they talk about, right? Mm-hmm. But if you look at their leadership, I mean, it's not very diverse at all, right? I'm not going to point fingers. I'm trying to avoid that, but look at their leadership. Go to their DCCC, look at the Orange County Democratic Party, and it's not very diverse. Look at the Orange County Central Committee and look at the leadership. Totally different. Women, we've got Hispanics, we got Asians. Everything.
I mean, shouldn't it be the person most qualified for the job, not necessarily a matter of just blanket diversity, right?
Right.
I don't know. Right. Maybe I'm in the I'm going to be destroyed for saying that even.
No, we should look at merits. Merits is more than anything else. And I think that's one thing about our party that has been so great. And I've been out there, promoting our parties since I became a U.S. citizen when I was 19 and I registered to be a Republican. And I've been a Republican ever since. And I'm always out there promoting our cause because in the Republican Party, we're not looking at, oh, wait, we have 2 Asians here, we have 3 whites here, and because I know you're qualified, but because you're, we need more whatever, we need more aliens from Mars, so we got to put that person in.
I like the message that you guys are putting out, less taxes, because it's hurting me to fill my gas tank right now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh.
I filled up the other day. It was in the 4. It's in the 4s, and I usually don't pay attention to that because I'm busy getting gas. I'm like, what's going on with the gas?
You're hurting businesses, hurting family, hurting your freedums.
Yeah.
Just leave me alone. Leave you alone. That's kind of.
It's really bad. I'm hearing stories from people who have to say, I met a interesting fellow from San Bernardino who is working a good paid job, but he's only able to fill up halfway to go to work.
Oh, man.
Because he can't afford all of it. Because he said, if I do that, then I don't have money to put aside to pay for my monthly rent. So, we shouldn't be, again, we should be solving problems to help people.
That's where you should play the sad music right there.
Sad music, yes.
No joke, man. That's that's people can't even fill up your gas tank.
Yep.
And that's tough. I remember when I was a kid, filling up putting $6 into the tank and got to get to school.
Yeah,
I didn't finish school, but I went to school.
Yeah. But gas tax is hurting a lot of people. People are, they're working hard and they see it going down the drain, literally.
I know.
The music is just really bringing this all together.
I know. And the things I do, a lot of volunteer service. The things that I do for people I can't do is it's hurting me. I'm counting trips now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
that's with the full pension, and then the wife's income is still tough.
Okay, but I have to give you a little bit of uplifting message. And this is the beauty of America, okay?
Wait, uplifting music now?
And now uplifting. I do want to finish that story because there's a very positive thing. And this is why I love America, right? And why government should stay out of people's business. So he was telling me about the fact that he could barely afford to fill up half the tank. And someone behind him noted they were talking while they were gassing up, and he offered to pay for him to have a full tank of gas. So he didn't have to worry about it on the way home because he was worried about how he was going to get home.
It's awesome.
I love the sound effects.
I know. I love the
sound effects. Really bring it all together.
So, in America, right, we take care of each other.
Yeah.
Right? And so why is government taking money out of our pocket that we can't help our fellow citizens? Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So what happened to community, right? Having that close community. By the way, so I live in the district. I live in the 45th. I live in Mission Viejo. And, we have a good sense of community. Mm-hmm. It's, We talk to our neighbors. We still have that, but a lot of places,
No, and you know what it is what the Democrats have done is destroyed the sense of community. Because I have a couple of friends where I work who are very far left from me, and we have these conversations, and they say, well, one of them said to me one time a few years ago, and said when I was complaining about taxes, and he said, well, I don't mind paying my taxes. It's going for good use, and so I don't have to worry about it. And I said, well, look, you're paying the government to provide these services, but wouldn't it be better if it's being done through the community, where they actually know the needs of the person, rather than some government program, in DC that says one size fits for all, and instead it is community driven. It's tailored to that need. Right? But by giving it to Congress or giving it to Sacramento, guess what happens? That disconnect, right?
Yeah.
I don't have compassion. I don't care about my fellow man because I said, the government will take care of you. I don't have to do anything. That's how you drive selfishness. And community is important. So I had to share that story because I love how America is. We care about each other.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally.
So I'm just, someone had a question. I was putting it there.
Okay.
About how to donate. So there you go.
Thank
If you had a question how to donate, I just sent the link. So can you tell us about the Yorba Linda City Council and how those experiences of you think will help you?
Well, when I ran for city council, our city was very divided. And one thing I wanted to do was bring my experience as an attorney who have worked on mitigated cases. Like what I had said before, I'm all about solution and not about ideology, or it is how can we solve the problem best for the people. And being on city council, the five of us being independent thinkers, we first and foremost, what I love about my city council that we have done is we respect each other's opinion. We understand that opinions are opinions, right? It's opinion is not something you can just disrespect, right? Because when you disrespect people's opinion, you're really just respecting them as an individual and dumbing them down. And one of the things at our city council is we respect independent thinking. And if we vote against each other, okay, we move on. That's just a vote, nothing personal. And that is what I'm bringing to Congress. It's not personal. All right. We're here to do people's job. And what they want us to do is solve the problem and having respect. If congressional members, leaders of the country, start respecting each other, guess what? Our next generation, our kids who are watching TV, they know that it is important to respect each other's opinion. And that's what I believe I will do. But most importantly, as city council members, we deal a lot with all things are local politics, right? So we deal a lot with finances, transportation, issues that directly impact people. And how that will translate to Congress is knowing what is directly impacting people. I can bring the solutions to the congressional level, knowing that where is the money? Federal dollars need to go. Where should the federal government, stay away and really let the local government, the people closest, the elected officials closest to the people do their work. And we as the federal government should be in a supportive role rather than being the main character and all that. Couple of positions I'm on are that I mentioned earlier is I'm a director on toll roads, as well as on the Southern California Association of Government and the Orange County Mosquito Vector and Control District. That is very important. We have 4 species of mosquitoes right now in Orange County, and they all carry deadly viruses. So we need to get the word out. So public health is another issue that I care a lot about, making sure that people are protected. We eradicate diseases. Another 2 issues that I know nobody has been talking about, but is so important. Number 1 is we need to put the dollars back into antibiotics and antiviral research.
Yeah.
So we, a couple of years ago, I read this alarming article in the Journal of Medical Associations that said we have no new antibiotic drugs in the research pipeline because it doesn't make a whole lot of money a lot of pharmaceutical companies, they were going into these, Botox, these cosmetic type of drugs or genetic type of treatment, because there's dollars in there, and it's a lot of money being raised for cancer research, right? And things like that. It's not that those diseases are not important, but the basic cold medicine, they're not putting money in there. And we should be concerned.
That affects everybody.
It affects everybody. Same with antiviral. So we need to deal with that.
You have a comment, not necessarily a question, but I hate to interrupt you, but I thought you might like to hear it. It says,
okay.
Vera Yang says, I don't live in Peggy's district, but I definitely support her.
Thank you, Vera.
Not sure if you know her?
I believe that is who I think it is. Yes, I do. Hi, Vera. Thank you for your support. She's a great supporter.
I got more questions here. So what got you into politics in the first place?
I got into politics when I was working in the domestic violence and child abuse sphere, and I was seeing that, number one, the immigration law wasn't working for these women who were stuck in these relationships, and there was no way to get out. And then on the child abuse front, I felt that too much of the policy was all about keeping the child in the family and not enough to, how to help them escape that violence. And like I said before, you can never effectuate good policy, if you never work in the trenches. And I was providing services, direct services to the to the clients, and I realized that there's a lot of things that needed to be changed, and they needed a voice. And to be the best voice is somebody who actually did the work, know what works, what doesn't work, what money is needed, what doesn't need money is where it could be better used. And that's what got me involved in politics. After learning all those things, I went on to work in both Congress as well as our state Senate on those issues. I passed 2 laws on my own, 2 pieces of legislation in child welfare. When the pieces of legislation was under Welfare Institution Code 317. Before I wrote that piece of legislation, children were being represented in court by the county council. So county council represented both the social worker and the child. So if the social worker wasn't doing his or her job, and we have heard of cases where children died or got really hurt in a family, guess who the county council is going to side with? The social worker, not the child, because there's nobody to watch the social worker on behalf of the children. So I changed that right away. The first year I was in practice, and I said, oh, no, this is not going to happen. So we changed
accountability.
We had a question. Kenny says, so were you a former social worker?
No, I was not. I was a former child advocate attorney. I worked in the juvenile dependency court, but I volunteered at shelters and various social services agencies.
Thank you for your service in that.
My pleasure.
A lot to my family as well. You know my story.
Yes.
We're not going to talk about that today.
Yeah.
So, okay, more questions. So what did your family say when you said you're going to run for Congress?
I didn't come to this decision by myself.
Oh, okay.
So it was everybody at the round table and kind of talked about, okay, can mom make a difference? Or this is just, joining in and having fun at the party. And in talking to them, I had their support, and they said, Mom, we know you can make a difference because you really don't care about, being the title of anything. You just want to solve problems. So it was great. I guess you can't do this without your family supporting you.
I suspect it's not big news because you've been in politics a while. So maybe just a logical next step, you think, for your family?
No, because you cannot do this if you don't have passion, right? And you should not do this if you don't have something to offer, right? I didn't want to be an empty suit. That we've seen so many candidates who are empty suits, and I didn't want to be one of them. It was never a logical step. Mark, you know me, and same when Dmitry knows me for a long time. I've been asked to run many offices in the past, and I've always said no. Yep. Go find somebody else.
Some people, like Christina Shea, our mayor, she doesn't want to do anything else other than mayor. That's as high as she wants to go. And but you're right, people do approach you. Many people have been bugging me to run for school board especially in the Chinese community, and we're going to talk about that more later in a few minutes about the education stuff. But yeah, I get that. A lot of people approach you and
I wanna be here for the education stuff, but I have to run, guys.
okay.
Because I have baby birthday stuff. Yeah.
Don't forget to share the broadcast. And
I'm sharing the broadcast, and I want everyone to share the broadcast as well.
And you can keep, joining in.
And you can.
I'm gonna be texting in. I'm gonna be like, hey, wait.
Wait. You can't drive and do that at the same time. But
I'm not gonna
as with
text
the
and drive.
education, you have an education
so the
question?
education thing. So one of the things I'm sure you guys are going to talk about it, especially because you're the education guy. But so because I have kids, I have little kids, and a lot of my friends have little kids, and the quality of that education is super important. I went to school here in this district. And I'll tell you, that education was horrible. I mean, look at me now. I can't even dress myself.
What school district was it?
Well, I went to Laguna Hills High School.
Okay.
And then I was a bad kid, so I went to Silverado High School, which local people understand the fight. But no, it was like I'm smart enough to have gotten through it.
Yeah.
But it was easy. It wasn't challenging. It was very just.
Look where you're at now. You're hugely
well, that's
influential.
because I'm bad at listening to people.
You didn't get indoctrinated, actually. My story is very similar.
Yeah,
my story is very similar. And I kicked ass in the Army. I went from 17 years old, homeless, no education, to advising commanding generals and commanding military units and degree. Yeah. So it does.
But even still, and I guess you kind of talked about it earlier. I'm gonna leave on this one because I wanna know, can we get some sort of program where people learn basic financial? So I got in business, and if you ever see pictures of me as a teenager, please don't
share.
I think I've deleted them all. No, but I was like a total communist because I didn't know any better. But as soon as I got in business, I was like, wait. We can't just all have everything all the time. So just learning about these kinds of things, I think, is important.
Yeah, no, we talked about it a little bit about, vocational training is so important, apprenticeship. And not everybody is, meant to be on this, straight edge for education.
What about even earlier?
But earlier, I one of the things, I went to Uni High in Irvine, right? And one of the things that I really enjoyed was the fact that the school had a business program, and I don't know if they still have it. So they had these series of classes in business, and I took them all. And I still remember what the accounting teacher said. If you finish an entire year of accounting, both the fall and spring semester, you will know enough to be a good bookkeeper for any corporations, and you can get a job, right? So I put myself through college, and that's what I did. I took those skills. We need to bring that back into our education system. But one thing I don't like, and I have 2 kids in public schools, and it really troubles me that they're bringing home these textbooks and they never open it. I mean, I
no, and they're expensive books, by the way.
They're expensive books that we, the taxpayers, you and I, have paid for, and they're not opening it. So I asked my daughters, and I said, so what happened?
There's a new edition every year.
Well, they claim that's their excuse. So that's their excuse to use PowerPoint, presentation, what the teacher wants to put in. Well, the problem with that is, right, they teach from the teacher's point of view. So if the teacher has a certain point of view, that's what they're going to get. They're not going to get well-rounded education. And I think that's where one of our problems is. And, it troubled me when kids tell me that I talk to a lot of students. And so I asked them about school and I said, so tell me what happened the first 20 minutes when you walk in. And I often hear from kids and in this district, and some we have really good schools in this district, where they're telling me that the public school teachers are telling them about their daily lives, everything but teaching. So if you think, 45 minutes in a classroom and 25 minutes is spent on attendance and the teacher telling them about their day, or even having a teacher who said, oh, wait a second, you know what? I'm not ready to teach yet because my meds haven't kicked in. I have ADHD and my meds haven't kicked in yet, but give me a little bit of time. How much wasted instruction is there on a critical issue?
Well, I just tagged a Irvine school board member just now, so they'll be popping in shortly.
Please listen in.
We can wait. Are they the most exciting part of school back in the day when I was there was movie day. They're doing not just movie day, they're also talking about their meds and stuff.
Yeah, so I was really shocked. I was going, oh my goodness.
So once you're done, I got more points on this exact one from my kid's school. Okay.
I'm going to get in trouble for
being late. I'm so sorry.
Being late. I have to run.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
This is awesome though.
So there's your send off.
Everybody
music.
share.
There's your send off music.
Yes.
Thank you, Dmitry, for joining us. Let me shut your mics off. See you guys. So,
Yeah.
we actually, all right, so take care, guys. My daughter actually told me she was upset about one of her English teachers over at Irvine High School about he was, actually, some water. Can you hold on 1 second? Some water.
Yeah,
One
yeah.
second. Super dry. Well, he was pushing his personal politics, and he hates Republicans.
That happened to my daughter too.
And I contacted the assistant principal, and I just said, "Hey, let's leave all politics against anybody," you know.
Yeah.
And it's so they're going to address that. So I just tagged a couple school board members. Maybe they'll want to jump in. Ira and Lauren in this live stream. Those are I know a few of the school board members, but those usually they engage on social media.
Hello, Ira.
We'll see if they actually come on, but we'll see. Because I didn't really realize it, and Lauren just texted me.
Hi, Lauren. All right.
She was texting me back a crosswalk. We were able to get it done. She didn't check. She doesn't check her messenger that often.
Okay.
But she's saying you could see the text message. She said I don't see it that often. Yeah. So she just said I don't always use messenger, but we already, with the help of Christina Shea and Irvine City Council, got the crosswalk done.
Yay.
There's
great.
a trouble spot near my kid's school, and there's a bit of a story with that too. But the good news at the end is we got it done.
Oh, good. And you know what? Government agencies have to work together, right? I mean, although you can say crosswalk, crossing guards, that's really, should be falling on the schools, but, government agencies
You want to get in?
need to work together and solve those problems. That's called solving problems and not caring which jurisdiction take care of it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting distracted here. I've actually told this, I'll dig into a little bit.
Okay.
I told the school district a couple years ago about this trouble spot, and they kind of blew me off and said, that's the city's issue. And at that time, I didn't really know anybody, right? And I'm like, well, I'm thinking, why can't you make a phone call? And I think I sent a couple follow-up emails. Some parents are upset about it. Then earlier this year, near that area, not in the specific spot where we're doing the crosswalk, but near that area, a kid was run over. I was there when the helicopter came in, and the kid was dragged under the car. It was really horrible. Kid survived.
Okay.
But we fixed some of the crosswalks, but we still needed that other. And it's sad it came to that. But it's the way the neighborhood evolved. And parents were telling the district, but they would say, well, it's not school property, and just left it alone.
Yeah. Why do we have to draw bright lines like that? Right?
Laziness.
Because if you think about it, all our tax dollars are going to a lot of these agencies. You can always find money to help address the problem.
I'll tell you what happened. A few weeks ago, me and the wife and the kid were in the principal's office. We were talking about it, and we talked about that. She said, oh, I'd love a crosswalk. I was like, I sit in the mayor's advisory committee now for Irvine, and I'll text her right now. And I did, and she directed me to her staff. And 3 weeks later, they're starting construction on the crosswalk. Great. Me as a parent, not the school board member, nothing, just me as a parent. Went to the city, and the city's like, well, no one ever told us. Sure, we'll fix it.
Okay, well, this is where I'm going to chime in about a great kudos to my mayor, Tara Campbell.
Yeah.
When she was first elected, she felt there was a need between the city council and the school board, needed to have a liaison, and so she is our liaison.
I'd love to have Tara on sometime, the youngest mayor in the country.
Yes, yes. And I think that's what we need to do, right? Foster that relationship. And why not? Tara's a great liaison. We're all liaisons in different places, right? I mean, I sit on different boards and agencies as a liaison between our city and those agency, and that's what we should do.
Okay. Kenny White has a question. He says a few comments. Kenny White saying binary teachers are one leftist and one right. Then he says we have to do affirmative action. I'm not sure of that question. Conservative educators, good job. Students have power if they use it. Okay, he's just commenting.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see a question there. He did comment earlier that he was appreciative that you answered a question directly, And I really appreciate that you're doing this and live.
Sure, of course.
'Cause a lot of people are terrified of this.
You know what's terrifying? My job is terrifying because I go before the Court of Appeal and I have these justices in these black robes and in this dark courtroom, and they're very high up and I'm low down, and they stare down at me. And they ask me a lot of questions, right? You go in there and you got, 3 sentences out. Usually my name is Peggy Huang. I'm here on behalf of the people. And they start asking questions. That to me is scary because so many things going on all the time.
Are you a litigator?
I was a litigator, and I'm still a litigator. I'm part of the trial team. It's appeals, writs, and trial section. So I do trials. But most of my work is appellate work. And so I spend most of my time writing and then oral arguments before the Court of Appeals. But, having those justices ask questions is scary. I enjoy the dialogue I'm having with everybody on Facebook, and especially with the constituents who live in this district, because I'm here to represent you. I need to know what your concerns about, and you need to know who you're voting for substantively. And I hope I am answering all your questions substantively, and what I stand for on every issue.
So we have a question from Dmitriy Chebotarev. I have a question, Peggy. Can you talk about your thoughts on free speech and social media, specifically Twitter and Facebook, private platforms censoring speech as a private entity, though they act as a public platform?
Well, as you know, I'm very much for the First Amendment, right? Of
course.
That's not clear, I am a big proponent. I think we forget about the importance of the First Amendment, right? And the need to have free speech. There's a difference between free speech and hate speech. But right now, a lot of people are afraid of saying anything on any platform because of this idea of groupthink and this bullying. If you don't agree with me, I'm going to bully you on cyberspace, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of engaging in a dialogue. And so I believe in free speech on all medium platform. I don't think you should be censored in any way. Now, there is a difference between fake news and free speech, right? I mean, perpetuating fake news to generate, emotions and targeting people, that's not speech. That's just hate in that sense.
We have a comment from Brian Moore. I'm a big Peggy Huang fan. Thanks for everything you do.
Oh, thanks, Brian. Hi, Pastor Brian Moore. A great shout out to Cross Point Church in Anaheim Hills, servicing the Anaheim Hill community. Great church.
I apologize if I missed comments. I have 2 screens showing me comments. I have one on my phone and another on the screen right here. So Brian Moore's question came across this screen, but not this screen. So
okay.
It's interesting technology that always mesh up because the questions may come from different places, but it goes back to here.
Okay.
Awesome. Cool. I got plenty of stuff. Here's one. How long did you have you served on Yorba Linda City Council?
I'm starting my 2nd term, so I've been on City Council for 5 years now.
Do you guys have term limits over there?
We do. We have a 12-year term limit, so essentially 3 terms.
So, oh, cool. There's one that I wrote. I wanted to know too, because I really like that you're a prosecutor. It makes me really happy, because my feelings about prosecutors. Can you translate your service as a prosecutor into terms a layman like me can understand? Maybe what you learned from being a prosecutor. How does your service as a prosecutor help? How does your service as a prosecutor help you now as an elected representative?
Well, I think number one, as a prosecutor and as an attorney overall, is critical thinking. What we do as prosecutor is really important in the sense that we don't jump into conclusion based on hearsay statements or just inconclusive evidence, because we know that we'd be taking away somebody's liberty. So when I look at evidence, I look at it critically, I balance it, I chase after evidence. Everything have to be factually based before I am willing to make a decision. And what has helped me with that type of background is when I make decisions policy decision as a city council member, I don't jump to conclusion. I really think about it. And I ask a lot of questions. I try to really understand. So for example, like on transportation issues or something, and I'm not engineer by training, but Fred Menegar, a council member from Laguna Niguel, happened to be really knowledgeable. And then I would go to him for questions, or I would hit up my friends who are in Caltrans. I do a lot of independent research. One of the things as a prosecutor or as a lawyer is we do a lot of research to formulate our positions. So I do a lot of independent research. I talk to people in the community. I talk to specialists before I will come to a conclusion. And I always say I go where the evidence leads me.
Okay. Kelly Earnby's watching. She's a prosecutor. Does she work with you at all?
No. Kelly is a county district attorney, same way Ray Dunaway. They work as an Orange County prosecutor. I'm at the state level. So I work for the attorney generals. So how it works is that Ray and Kelly work hard to secure that conviction. And when the defendant appeals that conviction, it comes to me. And my job is to deal with the constitutional issues, address any errors that might have occurred during the trial. Most importantly is to secure the judgment and make sure the sentence is fully executed.
Awesome. Okay, can we go further in the prosecutor stuff?
Sure.
We'll have a lot more questions.
All right.
For you, it's probably just a day at the office. For me, it's pretty interesting to talk about. I find your profession very interesting. I imagine it's something you do every day. Oh, I'm already quoting myself. And maybe our audience wants to know more as well. What's the most interesting case that you worked on?
Well, I think I briefly talked about it a little while ago, and it was the one that where a lady and her boyfriend were so drunk and somebody broke into their house, and unfortunately that guy did more than just steal things from her house. He raped her. Unfortunately, she was so drunk she thought she was having sex with her boyfriend, and I thought that was the most interesting case because of the type of statute we had to deal with. The evidence was DNA evidence. It was cold case. No witnesses, right? Okay. And so it from every sense of at the intellectual level, to bring together a case like that to ensure its conviction has been great.
We had a comment from, I think, an upset constituent, but I'll try to answer this for you. Mm-hmm. Michelle Schumacher, if you want to ask a question, I will ask it. I guess she tried to get a hold of you, wasn't able to. So I'm going to put her email address so you can contact Peggy. Let me get, I think was it Peggy at peggyforcongress.com?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it sounds like she wants to maybe ask you a private question. So it's Peggy. Let's see. And this isn't scripted. We're not, ignoring questions. We're actually going to get to your questions. Of course, if I can type it out.
And can I just say this? I have answered her question. It's just not the way she wants me to answer the question, maybe.
Okay.
Can I say what it is?
Sure. I mean, if you want.
Well,
I don't know what you're talking about.
I know Ms. Schumacher and the residents of San Clemente has been asking questions about the toll roads going through San Clemente. It's always been my position, and that I will weigh every single route going through South County for South County relief according to, one, it has to pass the environmental muster. Number two, it has to be financially sound. And right now we have so many options. I don't know which one's best. I don't have any opinion on that. And I know in the past, Ms. Schumacher wanted to us to answer the question of, well, yes or no on this particular route, or will I I think the last thing that Ms. Schumacher came to the toll road to ask is whether or not we would support, banning the agency. The agency is a public-private agency. We have done a lot of great work here. It's bipartisan. It's about local control.
Is that the TCA?
The TCA.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about that one.
Yeah, it's local control where, talk about, we all want to have an opportunity to be a part of a conversation. All 17 cities, all the cities that are touching the toll road gets to participate in that conversation. It's better than having Caltrans or, the state telling us what to do or OCTA telling us what to do. It is the cities themselves. But I know Ms. Schumacher concerns a lot about the toll roads going through her city, and I don't have a position.
Okay. Okay. My questions are acting up again.
Okay.
They're not coming through my phone, but they're coming on my screen. It takes a
dear.
few minutes.
Maybe
There is a delay.
delay. Yeah. That's what I'm
Okay.
thinking.
So,
Yeah.
okay. If you have a question, Michelle, can you pose a question? I'm not going to go into it too much. Then we had someone else, Sean Gordon. I'll let you read that, but it seems more of a comment than a question. So, Sean Gordon, if you wanted to ask a question, I'm not really quite understanding what you're saying, but you can look at that
Okay.
if you'd like. As I look at the next questions, but I'll tell a little bit about my story as you look at that about prosecutors. There was a tragedy in my family's history which got me into politics, and prosecutors got us justice. I'll try not to get emotional about it, but they got us justice, and it means
That's
a
what
lot
it
that you
counts.
could probably make so much more money doing something else, and you're taking like a huge pay cut, just like Kelly Earnby is being a prosecutor. So anyway.
But I think all the prosecutors and all the public servants, we do it because we are passionate and we want to help the community.
Okay. Did you want to speak to any more about Michelle Schumacher? Or do you want to maybe contact her?
Yeah, she can contact me. I think it's been going on for a long time. We're just waiting to see what we're going to do with those routes.
Okay. I hope that satisfies your questions, Michelle. If you got anything else, let me know. I'll try to help you guys out. Then the other comment, not very much of a question, more of a comment of a complaint. So Sean,
Well taken.
I'll say, I'm gonna give you your email address so you can pose that question to the campaign. Peggy I should just say for Congress. Of course, when everyone's looking at me on camera, I can't type. Peggy I can't type. Let's see, PEGG for.
I'm watching Mark type.
COM.
There you go.
All right, we don't want to ignore anybody. Also, I
Okay.
don't want to get into bickering.
Yeah.
But I will just say that our current rep doesn't take questions at all. Those are totally scripted. You write them on a piece of paper and you put them in the Tumblr. You watch the videos, right?
Yes,
And then
yes.
she pretends to read them and she says, oh, that question was already asked. And it's clear she is a gifted teacher, right? Which stays on script. And I'll go back to one of my rivals, I'm not going to mention his or her name, but they told me before, and they made that mistake. They shouldn't have told me. They were terrified at Facebook Live, and when I was running for school board, I did a lot of this. Like, how do you do it? How do you just stay for 2-3 hours straight? And I prefer the questions back and forth. But other people are terrified and they won't do it. But some of them are excellent on stage with a microphone when everyone has to be quiet.
Right.
But I prefer the questions.
Well, I prefer the question because I learn a lot, right? And isn't it through dialogue we learn and we kind of challenge our solutions, our theories? Hey, look, you know what? Maybe it sounds great in my head, sounds really good, but you get it out there and you realize, oh, hey, that won't work. I love it when people tell me that doesn't work. And then I said, okay, well, I'm about solving solutions. So I'll go back to the drawing table and come up with, something else. But most importantly, in that dialogue, I want to learn from you, right? And when you tell me something doesn't work, then I expect you to offer me something, like offer some kind of a solution.
Earlier
Let's
we
make this
talked
better.
about when people propose problems, they want to know what solutions. So Michelle, I see your comments across, and I said to you, I just responded, if you'd like, I'll do a live stream for you. Also, if you have any proposed solutions, I think Peggy would want to hear that versus just to argue. And I don't want to argue, descend into the arguing on this live stream. But we have some other questions as well.
Okay.
Did Peggy, I could read through them. Did Peggy just, if you can, Kelly Earnby, can you see that one? And then there was a question from Dmitriy. This is much more difficult when we have now 2 people. It was great when we had a 3rd person on the live stream so we can.
We can all look. Okay, wait.
Okay.
I think my age is starting to catch up with me about glasses there.
So Dmitriy had a question. Kelly had a question.
Yes.
If you want to answer those.
Okay, so Dmitry, about the marijuana legalization, regulation and enforcement, the people spoke on marijuana. I personally did oppose marijuana legalization because I see it as a gateway drugs. I'm very concerned about the legalization of marijuana because so much of it was cash cash-based industry. And so what happened was I worked on a couple of cases where there were robbery and, unfortunately homicide occurred because they were robbing these marijuana stores that were a cash base. I think we need to do better on the regulatory aspect of it. But the other problem that I have heard from other jurisdictions with legalized, which had allow for marijuana stores and grow plants, right? Growing their plants, productions in their cities. What I have learned from them is that instead of having a healthy market, it became a black market.
Can we go a little bit more into marijuana?
Okay.
Now, you said you opposed. Is it recreational or medicinal? Which ones did you oppose?
I oppose the recreational.
But you're okay with using it as medicine?
Medicine, the jury's out the door. I kind of been undecided on that because I'm evidence-based.
Okay.
I think, I don't have a problem with NIH or any pharmaceutical companies, anybody who wants to take on real solid research.
So
that's kind of what's missing right now.
Let me lawyer talk. Is it fair to say if there's medical uses, legitimate medical uses, you'd be okay with that? Is that?
I have to see the evidence
Okay,
about that because right now it's really anecdotal.
Okay.
And my problem with marijuana on the recreation, let's just dump that. But medicinal uses have led to misuse of other drugs as well, like
I think
opioids.
A lot of things can be
stuff.
misused. A lot of things.
There's a lot,
So
and
So I'm trying to finish. So you're saying if there is evidence that it works, then you're okay with that?
Yeah, I will go wherever the evidence goes, and that's always been
I just want
the
to
way
clarify
I do
because
that.
people will try to use this against you.
Oh yeah.
So you're saying you're open-minded. If there's
open.
evidence that it has medical, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll leave it there. So that's that.
That's where I am. But I think we need to do more in regulatory in terms of what we're going on with the market, black market.
Did you see the one about the Kelly's?
I haven't. No, Kelly. I haven't addressed the issues about the dreamers, and that's a very tough issue. But I come from the stance of that. I understand the topic out there and saying that the dreamers are were brought here, but we need to come up with a process to deal with them. Okay. A lot of these dreamers are heavily invested. We are invested in them as well. We need to help them come up with a pathway. I don't have a clear, position going there, but I will tell you, I do support the dreamers, and I do want to find a solution to help them because you know what? This is the point of view, and I know I'm kind of going in circles because I haven't figured out a solution yet, and I welcome suggestions. What is important to understand for the dreamers?
Wow, honest politicians saying you actually want to hear from the experts, and do you want to hear solutions?
Yeah. I'm totally will. I will not claim to be an expert on something I'm not. Right.
You know, I got the most response. I was in a forum, and they asked me a hard science question, and I was like, okay, no clue. So my response was, and I want to know what I know what I don't know. I have to talk to the science experts and the parents and listen to their recommendations. People came up to me after that debate in 2016 and they thanked me. All the other candidates just pretended to know stuff. And I was like, I don't know. I got to talk to the right people.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, no. And you know what? I'm being honest. But I do know something about the dreamers and how they feel. When you grow up in America your entire life, like I have, and you tell me to go back to my own host country, where I came from, I did that for 1 year, and it was complete culture shock. When I lived in Taiwan, they made fun of me and they bullied me because I couldn't speak Mandarin.
Do you speak Mandarin now?
I do. It's a lot better.
Ni hao.
And ni hao. It's a lot better. But I bet that's what's going to happen to them too, because they're going to go back and they said this is completely different land. So we need to find a solution. I'm all for finding a solution for the dreamers.
Okay, and Dmitry wanted to compare the misuse of alcohol. How does it relate to marijuana? I would say,
the same. Oh, yes.
We don't want anyone misusing it or driving under the influence. That's probably the biggest concern.
It is, and I didn't get a chance to go into that when we were talking about regulations earlier, because the problem about marijuana right now is we don't have a good test for driving under the influence of marijuana. So you know that marijuana, you can test positive for marijuana even 30 days after use.
Yes.
And you know that you can test positive for marijuana even though you're not using it, but you were in the room with somebody else. So how do you attach driving under the influence and criminality in that sphere? Those are challenging questions and how we can deal with regulations.
Okay, so to address the last couple comments from Michelle and Sean, I think we'll have to circle back to that. We support arterials that are free to the TCA only and build toll roads. Are the home schools and businesses not up for grab by failed agency? And
I think that's replying.
Yeah, that's replying to Denise, I think. So they have their own in the discussion, the comment section. I'll just bring your attention to the fact that Peggy's actually here answering questions live, and only a few candidates have done this. So that, there is an effort to speak to the community, even if we may disagree on things. I think maybe she'll take some time later to respond to those. And you guys have her email address. But we'll move on. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. All right. So then someone says, I like what you have to say, Dmitriy. So there we go. And,
I like these little side conversations. I'm just trying to figure out which ones are talking to each other and which ones are directed.
Yeah, if you want to pose a question, just feel free to ask a direct question and we will answer it. So what other ones we have? So I got lots of questions here. Of course, they come across. So did you say the TCA is private or is it a government agency? That's another.
It's a joint power, so it's a public, but it's a private public because we go out onto the market for private bonds, private investors. So the toll roads that you see today, they were bonds put out on Wall Street for private investor dollars. They're not your tax dollars in that sense.
Okay, I just want to do a time check. What time do you have to go?
I have to go at 4:30.
Okay, so we got five more minutes.
Okay.
What's the hardest case you worked as a prosecutor?
Toughest case. I think all of them are tough because I always think about the victims.
Okay. What was the most rewarding case, personally or professionally?
Well, the most rewarding case I've ever done was in the child abuse arena. I had a kid who was a fire starter, and he was difficult to place in foster homes and group homes because he would start fires. And so finally, for one of them, the group home called me on a Saturday and said, I can't have this child here anymore. He's been setting fires. And the social worker is not responding to me. He had your card, so I'm calling, and he left a voicemail at work, and I was checking my voicemail on a Saturday. So I immediately dashed over to the group home. I wanted to save that placement. I spent the entire day with him on Saturday. And then on Sunday, I went by to check on him. Didn't hear from them for the rest of the week. And I just prayed for them, prayed for my kid. I prayed for the group home. Well, at the next court hearing, which was about 10 days, I think, after that event, the child ran across the lobby to give me the hug. Oh, wow. He screamed. He's like, there's my lawyer. And he's running across, and he hugged me, and he said, I missed you. I miss playing with you. Thank you so much for coming out. And then I spoke to the administrator, and he said after my visit that weekend, he never started another fire.
That's awesome.
He started obeying rules. And, eventually we got him home with his parents within the 6 months. And that case always stayed with me because I knew the difference of showing up.
Okay.
And that's what it takes.
Okay, so we only got a couple minutes left. Michelle has another question. After this, I'm gonna tag you in this, and you can respond directly to her.
Okay,
and sure. She wants to go very deep into the policy of the TCA.
Yeah.
So we don't have enough time to cover that, but I'll tag you and I'll respond and say,
sure.
You guys can go back and forth on that.
Okay.
So you guys are connected. I've got a ton more questions too. Well, I know if elected, what committees do you want to serve on in Congress? How do you plan? And then I go into your issues and policies, but I don't know if we're gonna have much time for that.
You guys should see his screen. It's there are a lot there.
So it's better to have more questions than time allows for, I guess. So do you have any idea of what committees you'd like to serve on in Congress?
Oh, there are several. I don't even know where to start. Appropriation and transportation are two that I would like to really much want to serve on. The other one that people don't talk about a lot is foreign affairs, but that's an important one, right?
Awesome.
It deals with a lot of the issues, and it also deals with our veterans.
Awesome. So we want to wrap it. You're almost at 4:30,
Oh,
and I want to
okay.
have a chat with you before you leave off camera.
Thank you,
But let
everybody,
me-
for joining in.
Here we end it soon. We got more questions coming across, so feel free to contact Peggy. I'll post her details so you guys can talk to her. This is our out music. So you just take
Yay.
off.
Thank you.
Shut the microphone.